I stood in the narrow hallway outside Brittany's apartment, smoothing down the front of my navy dress for what must have been the 10th time. My hands were shaking slightly, not from nerves about the graduation ceremony, but from pure joy. 22 years of sacrifice, of waking up at 4 in the morning to clean office buildings before my shift at the grocery store, of sewing hems by lamplight until my eyes burned. All of it had led to this moment. The dress wasn't new. I'd bought it at a consignment shop in 2009 for my cousin's funeral, and it had served me well ever since. Church services, the occasional wedding, Brittany's high school graduation. I'd paired it with my good shoes, the black flats I only wore for special occasions, and I'd even put on the small pearl earrings my mother left me when she passed. I felt presentable, proud even. I knocked softly on apartment 3B. Through the door I could hear voices, Brittany's laugh, bright and musical, and a deeper male voice I didn't recognise. Derek, probably, the boyfriend she'd mentioned during our brief phone calls over the past few months but hadn't yet introduced me to. The door opened and there she was, my daughter, my Brittany. She wore a beautiful cream-coloured dress that fell just below her knees, her dark hair styled in soft waves. She looked like she belonged in a magazine. For a second her face lit up with a smile, but then something changed. Her eyes travelled from my face down to my shoes and back up again, and that smile flickered like a candle in the wind. "Mum," she said, just that one word, but I heard the hesitation in it. "Hi, sweetheart." I stepped forward to hug her, but she didn't move from the doorway. "You look absolutely beautiful. I can't believe my little girl is graduating from—" "Derek, can you give us a minute?" Brittany called over her shoulder. A tall young man appeared behind her, all clean-cut features and expensive cologne. He wore a charcoal suit that fit him perfectly, the kind you don't buy off the rack. He glanced at me with polite disinterest, nodded once, and disappeared back into the apartment. "Can I come in?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light. "I thought we could ride together to the ceremony. I know parking will be terrible, and, Mum..." Brittany stepped out into the hallway and pulled the door partially closed behind her. She lowered her voice. "Look, I don't know how to say this without sounding awful." My stomach tightened. I knew that tone. It was the same one she'd used at 16 when she told me she didn't want me to chaperone the school dance because the other kids thought I was too old-fashioned. I'd laughed it off then, told her I understood. Teenagers are embarrassed by their parents, it's normal. But she wasn't 16 anymore. "What is it, honey?" I asked. She glanced back at the apartment door, then at me. "Don't take this the wrong way, but you don't have the manners to be at an event like this." The words hit me like a physical blow. I actually took a step backward. "What?" I whispered. "I just mean," she sighed, running a hand through her perfectly styled hair. "It's a really formal ceremony, Mum. There's a reception afterward at the university club. Derek's parents will be there, and a lot of important people from the college. The president of the university, major donors, the board of trustees. I just think maybe it would be better if you didn't come." I stared at her, my daughter, the girl I'd rocked to sleep every night in our tiny apartment above the laundromat. The child I'd fed first, always, even when it meant I only ate crackers and peanut butter for dinner. The young woman whose college applications I'd proofread by flashlight during my night shifts because we'd had our electricity shut off that month. "You don't want me at your graduation," I said slowly, making sure I understood. "It's not that I don't want you there." "Then what is it, Brittany?" She wouldn't meet my eyes. You don't understand how these things work. The way people talk, the way they dress, all the social rules. I've worked really hard to fit in here, Mum. I can't..." She stopped herself, but the damage was done. "You can't what?" My voice was quiet, steady. "You can't have your working class mother embarrass you in front of your new friends. That's not fair." Her cheeks flushed. "I'm just trying to protect you. You'd feel uncomfortable there. Everyone will be in designer clothes, and there's a whole formal dinner with like 6 different forks, and I raised you better than this," I said. For just a moment, something flickered across her face. shame maybe, or regret. But then Derek appeared in the doorway behind her, checking his watch. "Brit, we need to leave in 20 minutes if we want to get good seats for your parents," he said. His parents, not me. His parents would be there, sitting in the audience watching their son's girlfriend graduate, probably sitting in seats that should have been mine. "I'll be right there," Brittany said to him. Then to me, "Mum, I'm sorry, I really am, but I think it's better this way. I'll call you after, okay? We can celebrate, just the two of us, maybe lunch tomorrow at that diner you like." The diner I like, the one where breakfast costs $6.99 and the coffee is weak but free refills. Not the university club with the 6 forks and the important people. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. Somewhere along the way in these 4 years of college, she'd become someone I didn't quite recognise, or maybe I'd never really known her at all. "Okay," I said quietly. "Okay." She looked relieved, surprised even, like she'd expected me to fight. "Yes, okay." I stepped back from the door. "You're right. I wouldn't fit in. You should go, sweetheart. Enjoy your day." "Mum, it's fine, Brittany." Really, I managed a small smile, though my face felt like it might crack. "I'm proud of you, so proud." I turned and walked down the hallway before she could say anything else. I didn't want her to see my face. I made it to the stairwell. She lived on the 3rd floor, and I never trusted elevators before the first tier fell. In my car, a 1998 Honda Civic with 240,000 miles on it, I sat in the parking lot and let myself cry for exactly 5 minutes. I'd learnt a long time ago that you can't afford to fall apart completely. Life doesn't stop just because your heart is breaking. After 5 minutes, I wiped my eyes with a tissue from my purse, checked my face in the rearview mirror and started the engine. I should have gone home. That would have been the sensible thing to do. Drive back to my little rental house on Maple Street, change out of my good dress, maybe make myself some tea and watch television until the hurt dulled a little. But I didn't go home. I drove to the university. I parked in the public lot, not the fancy one near the auditorium where Brittany and Derek were probably pulling in right now, and I walked across campus. The ceremony didn't start for another 45 minutes. Students in caps and gowns rushed past me, laughing and taking photos with their families. I saw mothers straightening their daughters' collars, fathers beaming with pride, grandparents wiping away happy tears. I found the auditorium, a massive brick building with white columns out front. People were already streaming inside, all dressed in their finest clothes. I saw suits and cocktail dresses, high heels and jewellery that caught the late afternoon sun. I looked down at my navy dress, my sensible flats, my bargain store purse. You don't have the manners to be at an event like this. I almost turned round, almost got back in my car and drove away. But then I thought about all those mornings I'd woken up at 4 a.m. My alarm clock screaming in the darkness, the weight of the vacuum cleaner as I pushed it across endless office floors, the chemical smell of cleaning supplies that never quite left my clothes, the ache in my knees as I knelt to scrub toilets in buildings where people like Derek's parents probably worked. I'd earned the right to be here, so I walked inside, found a seat in the very back row of the auditorium, and I sat down. An usher tried to help me find a better seat. Apparently there were reserved sections for families of graduates, but I shook my head. "I'm fine here," I told her. "Thank you." The auditorium filled up quickly. I watched families claim their seats in the middle sections, watched proud parents set up cameras and phones to record every moment. I spotted Derek's parents, at least I assumed it was them, sitting in the 3rd row. The woman wore a pale pink suit that probably cost more than my monthly Social Security check. The man kept checking his phone even as the lights dimmed. The ceremony began with all the usual pageantry, the processional music, the faculty in their academic robes, the students filing in alphabetically. I spotted Brittany immediately. She walked with her head high, her smile radiant. She looked happy. She looked like she belonged. Maybe that was what hurt the most. The university president spoke about achievement and potential and the bright futures awaiting these graduates. A student gave a speech about overcoming obstacles. A professor talked about the transformative power of education. All of it washed over me like white noise. Then the president returned to the podium. Before we begin conferring degrees, he said, I'd like to take a moment to recognise some very special members of our community. I shifted in my seat, ready for the endless parade of thank yous to board members and donors that seemed to happen at every formal event. This year we launched a new scholarship fund specifically for first-generation college students, young people who are the first in their families to attend university. These students often face unique challenges and they represent the very best of what education can achieve. I remembered when the development office had first contacted me 6 months ago. A woman named Patricia had called my house on a Tuesday evening. Mrs. Walsh, we understand you're the mother of one of our graduating seniors, Brittany Walsh. Yes, I'd said cautiously. I didn't get many phone calls from the university. Usually they were asking for money. I didn't have. I'm calling because we're establishing a new scholarship fund and we're reaching out to families of current students who might be interested in contributing. Even a small donation can make a difference. I'd almost laughed. A small donation. I'd been cleaning houses on the side just to afford the gas to drive up and visit Brittany once a month. But then Patricia had explained more about the fund, about how it would specifically help students whose parents worked multiple jobs, who came from communities where college wasn't the norm, who had to work their own jobs while taking classes. Students like Brittany had been. After I hung up, I'd sat at my kitchen table for a long time thinking, I had money saved, $75,000 that I'd been setting aside for years. It was supposed to be for a down payment on a small house. I'd been renting the same place on Maple Street for 18 years and I was tired of landlords and broken heaters and rent increases. I wanted something that was mine. But those students, I couldn't stop thinking about them. I'd called Patricia back the next day and told her I wanted to donate. All of it, every cent of my savings. Mrs. Walsh, that's incredibly generous, but are you certain that's a substantial amount? We don't want you to. I'm certain, I'd said, but I have one condition. It has to be anonymous, completely anonymous. No plaques, no recognition, nothing. Can you do that? There'd been a pause. We can, but Mrs. Walsh, donors at this level typically receive public acknowledgement. It's customary to. No, I'd said firmly, anonymous or I can't do it. She'd agreed, though I could hear the confusion in her voice. Why would anyone give away that much money and not want credit for it? The answer was simple. I didn't do it for credit. I did it because those students deserved the same chance Brittany had gotten. Because I knew what it meant to choose between groceries and textbooks, between keeping the lights on and buying a winter coat. Because education had given my daughter opportunities I'd never dreamed of, even if she'd forgotten where she came from along the way. Now, sitting in the back of the auditorium, I listened as the president continued his speech. The response to this scholarship fund has been extraordinary. But one donor in particular stepped forward with a contribution so generous, so transformative, that it will fully fund scholarships for 30 students over the next 5 years. I felt my chest tighten. They'd promised anonymous. That was the deal. This individual wishes to remain unnamed, the president said, and I exhaled. But we simply cannot let this moment pass without acknowledgement. So wherever you are in this audience, the lights in the auditorium suddenly changed. Spotlights swept across the crowd, searching. My heart started pounding. We want to say thank you. Thank you for believing in our students. Thank you for understanding that education changes lives. Thank you for your extraordinary generosity. The spotlight found me. It locked onto my face, bright and blinding, and suddenly everyone in the auditorium was turning to look at the back row. At me in my 15-year-old navy dress and my discount store shoes. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for our anonymous donor, Mrs. Dorothy Walsh. The applause started slowly, then built into a wave of sound that filled the massive room. People were standing, the entire auditorium was standing, clapping, looking at me, and in the third row near the front I saw Brittany. My daughter had turned in her seat like everyone else, searching for whoever the spotlight had found. When her eyes landed on me, her face went completely pale. Her mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. Next to her, Derek's parents were clapping politely, probably wondering who this old woman in the cheap dress was. The president was still talking. Mrs. Walsh worked 3 jobs to put her own daughter through this university. When we approached her about the scholarship fund, she didn't hesitate. She gave everything she had saved, everything, so that other students wouldn't have to struggle the way her family did. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what this institution is built upon. Not buildings or endowments, but people who believe in the power of education to transform lives. I wanted to disappear. I wanted the floor to open up and swallow me whole. This wasn't supposed to happen. I'd given that money freely, without expectation of recognition. I didn't need applause or speeches. I just wanted those students to have a chance. But the spotlight stayed on me and the applause continued, and I had no choice but to stand there and accept it with as much grace as I could manage. I nodded once, acknowledging the recognition, then sat down quickly. The spotlight finally moved away and the ceremony continued. I couldn't focus on anything after that. The names of graduates blurred together. I heard Brittany Marie Walsh announced, heard the applause, saw her walk across the stage and accept her diploma. She smiled for the camera, shook hands with the president, moved her tassel from right to left. She didn't look back at me, not once. When the ceremony ended and families flooded the aisles to find their graduates, I slipped out a side exit. I couldn't face her, not yet, not like this, with everyone knowing what I'd done. She'd told me I didn't have the manners for this event, and then I'd been publicly recognised as the largest donor. The humiliation of it for both of us was too much. I made it to my car and sat there in the parking lot, watching families stream out of the auditorium. I saw Brittany emerge with Derek and his parents, all of them laughing and taking photos. His mother had her arm around Brittany's shoulders like she was already family. My phone buzzed, a text from Brittany. "Mum, where are you?" I stared at the message for a long moment, then put the phone face down on the passenger seat. I started the engine and drove home. The house was quiet when I got there, the way it always was. I changed out of my navy dress and hung it carefully in the closet. Then I made myself a cup of tea and sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd done Brittany's homework with her when she was little, where I'd taught her to write her name, where we'd celebrated her acceptance to college with grocery store cake and sparkling cider. The truth settled over me like a heavy blanket. My daughter was ashamed of me, not just of my clothes or my lack of social graces, but of me, of the life I'd lived, the work I'd done, the person I was. And the other truth, the one that hurt even more, I'd given away my future for hers, and she didn't even want me there to see it. My phone rang around 8 o'clock that evening. "Brittany," I let it go to voicemail. It rang again at 8:15, again at 8:30. Then the text started coming. "Mum, please pick up. We need to talk. I'm so sorry, please." At 9 o'clock there was a knock at my door. I knew it was her before I even looked through the peephole. I opened the door. Brittany stood on my small front porch, still in her graduation dress but with a cardigan thrown over it. Her makeup was smudged like she'd been crying. "Mum," she said, her voice breaking. "Come in," I said quietly. She stepped inside and we stood in my tiny living room, the one with the second-hand furniture and the carpet that needed replacing, just looking at each other. "I didn't know," she finally said, "about the donation. You never told me. You didn't need to know. $75,000, Mum. That was all your savings. That was," her voice caught, "that was supposed to be for your house. It was my money, my choice. But why didn't you tell me? Why did you let me?" She stopped, couldn't finish the sentence. "Let you what? Uninvite me to your graduation? Tell me I wasn't good enough to be there?" The words came out sharper than I intended, but I was too tired to soften them. Brittany's face crumpled. I'm so sorry. God, Mum, I'm so sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. Derek's parents, they have all this money and they know all the right things to say, and I just wanted to impress them. I wanted to seem like I belonged in their world, and I don't belong in that world. No, that's not. She took a shaky breath. You're right. That is what I thought. And I was wrong. So wrong. I walked to the kitchen and sat down at the table. After a moment, Brittany followed and sat across from me, in the same chair she'd sat in thousands of times before. When did I become someone you're ashamed of? I asked. You're not. Don't lie to me, Brittany. Not now. She was quiet for a long time, staring down at her hands. I don't know, she finally whispered. Somewhere along the way, I started seeing you the way I thought other people saw you. The cleaning lady, the woman who never went to college, the mum who didn't know about wine or art galleries or networking events. And I convinced myself that those things mattered more than... She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. More than the fact that you sacrificed everything for me. More than the fact that you're the kindest, most generous person I've ever known. More than the fact that you loved me enough to give away your dreams so I could have mine. I didn't give away my dreams, I said softly. You were my dream, Brittany. Watching you succeed, seeing you become educated and confident, independent, that was everything I wanted. But I became someone you didn't even recognize, didn't I? I couldn't deny it, so I didn't say anything. Derek's parents asked me about you after the ceremony, Brittany said. They wanted to know why you left, why you didn't come to the reception. And I realized I didn't know what to tell them because I didn't know who you really were anymore. I knew the version of you I'd made up in my head, the embarrassing mother I had to hide. But the woman they announced in that auditorium, the one who gave away everything she had for strangers, I didn't know her at all. She's the same person, honey. I've always been the same person. I know that now. She reached across the table and took my hands, my rough, work-worn hands with their calluses and age spots. Mum, those people at the reception, they all wanted to meet you. The president asked me 3 times where you were. Derek's mother said what you did was one of the most beautiful acts of generosity she'd ever witnessed. And all I could think was that I'd told you not to come because you didn't have the right manners. You were trying to protect yourself, I said. I understand that. No, I was being a snob. A terrible, ungrateful snob. She squeezed my hands, and I don't know if you can forgive me for that. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. I saw the little girl who used to help me fold laundry on Sunday afternoons, the teenager who'd stayed up late studying at this table while I worked my night shift, the young woman who'd called me crying during her first week of college because she felt so out of place among all the rich kids. Somewhere in the past 4 years, she'd learnt to fit in with those rich kids. She'd learnt their language, adopted their values, started seeing the world through their eyes. And in doing so, she'd almost lost sight of where she came from. But not completely, not yet. I forgive you, I said. Just like that. Just like that. I smiled, a real smile this time. But Brittany, you need to understand something. I didn't give that money to make you proud of me. I gave it because it was the right thing to do, and I don't need recognition or gratitude or apologies. What I need is for you to remember who you are, where you came from, what really matters. She nodded, fresh tears falling. I broke up with Derek. What? After the ceremony. I told him we were done. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. When everyone was looking at you in that spotlight, he leaned over and whispered, "Wow, your mum really knows how to make a scene, huh?" And I saw him clearly for the first time. He's not a bad person, but he's not my person. He doesn't understand sacrifice or struggle or real love. He doesn't understand you. Brittany, you didn't have to. Yes, I did. Because if I'm going to be with someone, I need them to see what I see when I look at you. Not a cleaning lady with bad manners, but a woman who worked herself to the bone so her daughter could have a better life. A woman who gave away her life savings without a second thought because she believed in helping others. A woman who showed up to her daughter's graduation even after being told she wasn't good enough to be there. I sat in the back row, I said. I didn't want to embarrass you. You could never embarrass me, Mum. Not really. That was all in my head, all my own insecurity. She stood up and came round the table, kneeling beside my chair like she used to do when she was small. I love you, and I'm so sorry. I stroked her hair, the way I'd done 1,000 times when she was little and scared or hurt. I love you too, sweetheart. Always have, always will. We stayed like that for a while, mother and daughter, in the small kitchen where we'd shared so many meals and conversations and moments of quiet understanding. Finally, Brittany pulled back and looked up at me. The scholarship fund, the president said it's going to help 30 students. That's 30 people who won't have to choose between paying rent and buying books. 30 people who'll have a chance because of you, because of us, I corrected. You were my inspiration, Brittany. You were the first person I invested in, and you showed me what education can do. Those students are getting the chance. I gave you. Then I need to make it count, she said. I need to be someone you can be proud of, really proud of. I'm already proud of you. You graduated with honours, you have a good job lined up, you've built a life for yourself. That's everything I wanted. No, she said firmly, that's what I accomplished. But who I am, that's what matters. And today I wasn't someone worth being proud of. But I'm going to be, I promise, over the next few weeks. Brittany proved she meant it. She started volunteering with the scholarship program, mentoring incoming first-generation students. She moved out of her expensive apartment and into a modest place she could afford on her own, without help from anyone. She called me every Sunday without fail and visited twice a month. And slowly I began to see glimpses of the girl I'd raised, the one who cared about substance over appearance, who understood the value of hard work, who knew that kindness and generosity mattered more than designer clothes or knowing which fork to use. 3 months after graduation, on a quiet Sunday afternoon, Brittany and I drove out to the university together. The scholarship office had invited us to meet some of the students who'd received funding from the Walsh First Generation Scholarship, the name they'd given it after I finally agreed to let my name be attached. We sat in a small conference room with 5 students, all of them young and nervous and grateful. They told us their stories about parents who worked multiple jobs, about being the first in their families to go to college, about the fear and excitement of stepping into a world they didn't fully understand. I saw myself in every one of them. And I saw Brittany too, the girl she'd been 4 years ago before the expensive boyfriend and the fancy clothes and the embarrassment about her working class roots. After the meeting, as we walked back to my car, Brittany slipped her arm through mine. "Thank you, Mum," she said. "For what?" "For not giving up on me, for showing me what really matters, for being exactly who you are. Even when I tried to pretend you were someone else," I patted her hand. "You're my daughter. I could never give up on you." We drove home in comfortable silence, the kind that comes from truly knowing someone and being known by them. And I realized that my $75,000 had bought something more valuable than a house or financial security. It had bought me my daughter back. Not the polished, careful version of Brittany who wore designer dresses and dated rich boys and worried about impressing the right people, but the real Brittany, flawed and human and still learning but trying, always trying to be better. And in the end, that was worth more than any house I could have bought. That evening, as the sun set over my small rental house on Maple Street, I sat on my front porch with a cup of tea